welcome to the Polymatic Podcast, episode 2 for October 9th, 2016. Today's topic, travel to other planets.
Hi, I'm John.
I'm Alan.
With Elon Musk announcing SpaceX plans to go to Mars, and now Boeing making it into a race, claiming that they're going to be the first people to land on Mars with their engines. Who do we want to get there first? Do you want Boeing? Do you want the Amazon guy to get there first? Do you want Elon Musk to Musk his way up there?
I guess from my perspective, I know that in these cases, in big oil corporations, competition is really healthy, right? We can say a lot about Apple and Microsoft and Google, but they're also in competition with each other, and so better products come from each of these companies as a result. And so this, I think, is a valid approach forward for I think who's a more likely candidate to get there. Definitely Boeing and Lockheed officially and unofficially have a lot of knowledge of how to build space things because NASA contracts them to do things for them.
Yeah, but SpaceX too. They have NASA has a contract with SpaceX too.
Sure, yeah. But SpaceX is a new entry point into the game. Yeah. So they're bringing some innovation quicker. And they're doing it on their own dime, and that is, they're doing it on their own dime as a company. I don't know about the seeding and round funding they have out there. So for me, I just want to see who's going to get there first. I'm interested definitely in that. Do I care? I think the better likely candidate that I think I would like to see very successful and grow up from this experience is SpaceX. Because I think they're doing things, I think there's a mentality and a design approach there that the existing companies, and we're just talking, I mentioned Lockheed and Boeing, there are more companies that are not names you'll know that have been building things for NASA for a very long time. That's how we got our space shuttles and our rockets. So I hope at some point there is, I don't know what I hope for, but I hope that we get there sooner rather than later. Yeah. And at least by the time I hit 100. I don't know if that's likely, but I'm not going to be one of those people putting up $250,000 to go to Mars. I think it's going to be, 50 to 100 years of going through a lot of growing pains on Mars to really make it civilized.
The space race, like in the 50s and the 60s, right?
Mm-hmm.
That unlocked so much new technology. And now we have a new space race, not between countries per se, although China and Russia are certainly going to try to get there. But because there is a new space race, and I hope this takes off and everybody starts building things, we're going to see a lot of new technology. You're going to have to put people into a state of torpor to get there, right? Because 9 months in a cooped up space, that's not going to be good, right? You're going to knock them out. Or if we're going to go further, like further into the solar system, like Saturn and Jupiter and stuff, we're going to have to put people to sleep. And that's going to get us some new technology and health, and that's going to, all sorts of things. The new materials, the new other stuff we need to make. It's a giant task. And Elon Musk made a list of things he thought he needed, right? And he said, it's kind of simplified. And it is. But there's a lot of stuff that was missing out on that presentation of his. But I think that he has the right idea. And if I look at the other guys, like the Amazon dude and Boeing is so closed off, right? So when you look at SpaceX, it's very transparent, at least as far as we know, right?
Right, yeah.
But whenever they do, they put up a media spectacle, put stuff in there, allow people to see things, stream their stuff, which is going to be awesome. Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to this kind of stuff. I think that in all the sci-fi things, the books and the movies and stuff where people leave Earth and go somewhere else is like my favorite type of thing. So I'm experiencing the future. Yes, sci-fi is happening.
They're definitely inspired by these movies, right? A lot of cell phone technology was inspired initially by this, the communication technology that was proposed in Star Trek. Right, so you and I aren't going to be living in that future in the next 500 years. Maybe the space race, this next iteration of it, will bring that about in the next 500 to 1,000 years, I hope. But we're not going to be living in that sort of utopian approach that we watched on TV. and we see in the movies. We won't get there quickly. Because of the very thing you just mentioned, which is you have a lot of things you have to build to get there.
Yeah.
Which, like as a developer, our universes are fairly open as software developers. We can build a lot of things inside that sandbox. And every time I look at a new website or a new thing I have to build, I go, oh, well, there's a lot of things I don't have that I'm going to need that I can imagine I need, and I put that on my list. And then I work on those little things first, and then I can go do the actual primary thing of interest.
I think that's also Elon Musk's plan, just to work on the small things first and then go out. But he wants to at least send stuff to Mars already because, he wants to make sure that all technology works. And I think that's the difference. With NASA, it's been mostly, do your thing, go to the International Space Station, go back, and do some missions with satellites and stuff. But there's no real exploration. Although there is the Orion thing. Was that a NASA thing?
I believe so. So NASA does a lot more than the public is aware of. I mean, everything is publicly available, but unless you're snooping or you're a big diehard NASA fan, you wouldn't know about it. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, the comparisons I'm making to like Lockheed and Boeing and Northrop Grumman. And what's the other company? The company General Dynamics or something like that. They were the other company that was been building.
Do you mention Massive Dynamic or because that's
something like that?
That's a fringe reference.
But there is a company that has been building the rockets and even the capsules and stuff since the 50s for NASA. NASA looks at it from a very scientist, physicist approach, right? They don't always get things right, but their percentage of getting the accuracy of things right is incredibly high. The mathematics of how to predict something is going to fall down on Mars and come up with a solution for that, especially when you can't see it and you've never been there, you're just imagining inside a bubble. And, they put a lot of people on it. It has funding. NASA has funding in the U.S., but it's not well funded, right? And the people that are the benefactors of all those contracts are Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin and Boeing, and they make a tremendous amount of money from it.
But I think that because they're privatizing it and because they're putting other companies, allowing companies to do this, going out there, it simplifies that getting out into space, right?
Yep.
It makes it easier for other people to go there and invent things and do things in outer space. Just having that only be a government thing to do, it holds us back as a species, right?
I agree. Yeah, no, I definitely think. Also, keep in mind, I mean, really, the only two nations that have been putting a lot of effort on this have been countries, right?
Yeah.
Nations, right? And so there's some newer entries into the mix now, right? You got China, you got India, putting stuff up there. Also, I think I heard, and I don't know the details, so don't quote me on this, but I thought there was some effort on China's part, and their space station or something that they put up there is falling to the ground, burning up.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I believe so. So what's happening is there are a lot of people who are ambitious. Other countries are ambitious to be candidates in the future of all this, and they're rushing into it. And, there's a lot of careful work that has to be done because of all the small things that have to be addressed to go along the way. None of this stuff is easy. We'll be able to look back at it 100 years later, hopefully, and say, oh, well, we have this great little thing now that's easy to do. Grandpa, why don't you just do this, right? And it's because we didn't have it today, and it's because a whole group of people and some money was there, and people were given an opportunity or made the opportunity to build the technology that is just not existing today. So I don't know. That's my rant on it. Sorry to take over on that.
Do you think you're going to be if you're going to go to Mars and you're going to be on the internet over there? How's that going to work? I mean, we're going to have some sort of network between planets because there's the Deep Space Network, but the data rates for that it's like tiny in comparison. And
sure, right? Because the signals take a long time to travel, even though they're traveling pretty fast. I mean, the way they communicate, I don't know the bandwidths, but I've heard astronauts leak out certain bands that are used from the ground up to the space station. for communication is not really high bandwidth, but they're now able to do streaming stuff every once in
Yeah.
a while, right? So there is technology that does exist. It's not meant for mass usage, mainly because we're talking a lot of high power, a lot of energy,
Yeah,
right?
but
So that kind of networking would have to be further developed to be a larger mass capacity, right? Or one big pipeline that's being built to to make its way out there, right? Or we'd have to put out some deep orbiting satellites, if that's even possible,
I don't think
around
you're going to
things.
be in a way of doing it all from the internet from the Earth. There's going to be stuff like CDNs. You're going to have to do work with that to make a sort of web based thing if you're going to do that.
Or mesh-based,
Yeah.
right?
They
you'll have to.
have just one connection between the two planets and just have something that will transfer the data to the other content delivery network. It means that you're going to have to put a lot of data storage on Mars as well. But
Well,
I just
I
don't.
would-
I don't want my friend Yuri blocking everything by torrenting the latest Doctor Who episode from Earth, right?
Yeah, the other thing about it is, the idea is, oh, we just assume point to point, but you don't understand the orbiting, the behavior in which all the planets orbit. They're not aligned,
No.
right? So you really can't do point to point.
No, and the Earth
Um,
Earth's going to get occluded by the sun at some points, right? During the year.
Right, yeah. So you would need to put, like we do for GPSs, you'd have to put a mass array of orbiting devices out there that are all capable of intermeshing
Yeah.
and then sort of meshing between planets. And then you'd have to do the same around, probably someone would have to study and take a look at the orbiting cycles around the sun and then come up with the best patterns and then deploy an array of these mesh satellites around so that every time they're within proximity to pass each other, that they could kind of re-communicate or acknowledge the bursts. And, you'd have to put a lot of strong thought into the networking cycling for that. To do that, I think that probably is the only kind of considerate way I can imagine that you would get it done easily
Yeah.
and reliably.
Yeah, because you're going to hop data packets from server to from
Right,
from
and
planet
then
to planet.
we'd be blasting a lot of stuff, and then things that you can't affect, the solar flares or things that will create disruption. Right.
Well, I think that maybe some laser-based system might be easier to do than radio at some points because there's so much interference from stuff, right?
I would figure that the way NASA gets signals back with the satellites, I'm sure that they're constantly adjusting them in sort of micro fashions. They know when something is going to be pointed at us in the most optimal direction. That's when it will burst and send data. Yeah.
And just bouncing stuff around because
Yeah.
something might be occluded, something might not be picking up, and you're sending and not knowing when you received it until like 15 minutes later or something. Like so, it's.
One of the things that NASA can't do is they just don't have the funding, but they can't have 500,000 people on all these things. They don't have 500,000 people employed. They have way less than that. Your subcontractors, your Northrop Grumman, your Lockheed, your Boeing in the U.S., definitely, and then the other ones that I don't know off the top of my head, they are definitely employing a lot more people to get these things to a point where they're even slightly achievable. So, I mean, we just talked about the internet, right? So, or any kind of internal planetary networking. Yeah, it's going to be tough. Yeah, I think you need a lot of people on it, and you need a lot of technologies, and then you need a lot of plans. And the way world works is bureaucracy. Yeah, everyone's got to agree to, even if they're well unqualified to say yes or no to it. That's why
yes.
things don't happen.
Mhm.
That's why when to the point of a Google or an Apple or a Microsoft, they will go and innovate because they're not they don't have a certain level of bureaucracy to make things, but they definitely have a ton of bureaucracy in the way to sell things. So.
Did you ever read The Expanse or did you watch that series? Yeah.
I watched the series. I bought it on Amazon. I'm looking forward to episode 2. I don't know if it's my favorite sci-fi.
You watched the first episode?
I watched the first season.
Season. Okay, you said episode 1, episode 2.
Oh, yeah. I bought the first season. Sorry.
Okay. Did you like it?
I liked it well enough. I think I'm always a fan of someone who is trying to do something different in sci-fi, but not trying to pander to me in a weird way.
Yeah.
Like this is where a lot of, I guess if you want to call it, I call it more sci fantasy, but when you get into the werewolf, vampire, and Frankenstein stuff, and they're just trying to be weird for the sake of pandering.
So instead of glitter vampires, you're going to have glitter aliens.
Right, yeah, exactly. Well, they did that. That's what was it? Jupiter Ascending basically was. I still liked it. I think it had some good aspects to it, but in the same respect, you're right. It was I would call them glitter aliens.
Yeah, but the thing is about the Expanse, there's like a division between Mars and Earth. You think we'll ever have that? We'll ever have like a war between Earth and Mars? Well, we're humans, so this is probably going to happen.
Sure. I don't know if it was Bill Nye or if it was Neil deGrasse Tyson that sort of mentioned it, but basically, if you have the first Martians or the people being that are obviously humans being born on Mars, clearly they're physiologically going to be different. Gravity is different. Natural selection here on Earth takes hundreds of thousands of years to evolve, right? And so nothing's going to happen inside of our lifetime. But I definitely can imagine that people who are born on Mars are going to be slightly different.
Well, I meant more divided, as in we're gonna throw rocks at each other.
Well, but I mean from that, if you can imagine a generation of born Martians, being physically different, there's going to be some form of racism there. I can imagine that, and there's going to be some form of division. Yep. It's the human nature, unfortunately, where everyone is yelling about their differences instead of getting along with their similarities. So I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens, but I can't imagine them all looking to be like humans. I assume we'll get different species out of that.
Well, eventually. It's going to take thousands of years before we can't actually be the same species anymore. But
right, yeah.
Well, it's a lower gravity situation, and there's more radiation, so more genetic defects, and genetic defects are more different species, different changes. So yeah, I think that might start changing fast, because lower populations, smaller populations also create new differences, right? So the more hanky-panky between closer related people, the more changes happen, right? Things escalate pretty quickly. Anyway, so Scott Manley, the guy that does a lot of Kerbal stuff, he created a video where he recreates the SpaceX plan with Kerbal Space Program parts. It was a lot of fun. He did a stream where he did like 2 hours. He built like the thing in 2 hours. That was a lot of fun to watch. And then he also created like a video of that, like the actual thing. And you can find that at Polymatic.link/4. And besides that, I also bought 2 SpaceX t-shirts, like I said I would. So, yes!
You're a fan.
I'm a fan, yeah.
I think I'm a fan too. I just, I don't know, I'm interested in what's going on, and I don't know if I put my bets on SpaceX, but as I mentioned before, I think I would like to see them be successful.
Yeah.
I think it's the right starting group of people and company mentality that's probably going to be the right kind of success that we need to go forward.
I think there should be more companies doing this. I think that they should realize that that's the future and just go forward and do things like this. Like,
I'm sure, like the aforementioned subcontractor companies for NASA, I'm sure that there are plenty of individuals that work in these companies and engineers that definitely agree with that sentiment and believe it. But it doesn't, at the end of the day, until there's a way for it to be profitable, it doesn't pay the bills.
Yeah.
So
we need more Musks. We need more Bezos people, right?
Yeah.
We need more people like that try to. Or expand.
Branson. Is Branson totally getting out of the business of it? I think he's still involved, right? Virgin Space?
I don't know. There's more space tourism, right? So yeah, I think that's enough for space for today. Before I start floating off.
Space too much.
Yeah. You were talking about cutting the cord this week.
Okay, so this is a long-standing story with me. I've been wanting to cut the cord, but I have a roommate who is traditionally likes having sort of cable service and sort of just turning on the TV and having a plethora of stuff available. Now, it took a very long time. He saw that I had this TiVo and that he didn't have to schedule his life around watching television. And then he bought himself a TiVo. And so he's in love with the TiVo because it just sort of records things. And so he doesn't have to put much thought into it. Every once in a while, he tells it to record something specific, let's say like The Expanse. And he'll go down that route. And and he has this endless device that's got stuff on there waiting for him to explore. And so he loves that. And he loves having everything sort of almost instantly available to him and having the control over that. So no, he totally loves having sort of the traditional thing with a little modernization built into it. But what's happening around here is everyone is starting to cut the cord, and my impulse to do this goes back maybe 6 years ago. But the services just weren't there yet, and they still aren't 100% there yet. Your Hulus and your Netflix are definitely disruptors. I know there's definitely more. Your Amazon and your Apple, if you want to pay for it, totally can be a disruptor. I mean, if you just put your faith in a season and you want to buy it, you can buy it. The advantage of TV here in at least the U.S. is your latest Star Trek shows up, and as long as your DVR catches it or you sit there and you watch it real time when it's on the air, you're fine. It's free. You got to put up with commercials. But if you want to pay for it, it's highly accessible to you on pay-only services.
So did you cut the cord?
We're having this conversation in this household. I've been living off of for the last more than I would say probably easily 5 years. I've been living mainly off of Hulu and Netflix and taking some advantage of things that I can't get elsewhere in a timely fashion because my roommate has an active TiVo. He bought a new TiVo because the old one is old, and I still have yet to put that on the house network. But I've been opening the conversation with him and saying, well, there's a lot of things. Most of what you want to watch is available today. You just have to go to the place where it's available. And I'm already paying for some of these things, so it cost him nothing. Right. I'm already paying for a lot of these services. The one example here in the U.S. is the TV show The Flash. Well, it was on Hulu. Now it's gone. And I was like, well, why is it not available? Oh, because the CW channel has built its own app, and it's only going to show it live on television and cable or their app. And so that's the part of this where it really kind of irritates me because I don't want to install every channel's 500 apps on my Amazon Fire TV just to watch the limited content they give me. And that's where like Hulu was a better sort of massive conduit for those things. So I'm already prepared to cut the cord. The kinds of things I want to watch will show up eventually in places. They just won't show up on Tuesday for me to watch it on Wednesday, unless I install someone's unique app.
I cut the cord back in May, I think. Yeah. But because I only used it to watch disasters on TV with like CNN or something just to watch it. But I figured out I could just watch it on YouTube as well, so that's fine. Right? There's been plenty of people streaming CNN and Sky News and other channels. And then there's Doctor Who. That's what I used it for, watching Doctor Who on BBC. I'm like, yep, I don't care about that anymore. I'm just going to cut the cord. Fine.
Yeah,
done.
I mean, like that's a perfect example of that. Like, I will eventually catch up on Doctor Who, but I have the opportunity right now on Netflix, and I don't watch certain things in a timely fashion. So the impulse to want to defend having it for when I want to. Well, the thing is, I forget. You mentioned Doctor Who. I probably haven't thought about Doctor Who in months, and so what will end up happening is the cost for me to carry the TV service. Yes, they bundle it and everything else, is awfully expensive. Multiply by 12. And you realize, well, what happens if I could just spend the $10 or the $9 where I want to, and I think I would still be just as satisfied. So I think it's not just the money thing, it's not needing it, trying to reduce sort of the noise and the stuff that sort of the stuff that I'm carrying around with me in life and paying for, then I probably don't need to, because I don't watch that much of those extra things that often. So.
Well, HBO, that's one of the things that I would like to pay for, but I can't because I don't have a cable subscription. I would like to get HBO Go and just pay them, right? But I have to get some cable subscription to get that over here. It's like,
have you tried
nuts.
HBO? Have you tried HBO Now? Because that's their direct pay service. At least here in the U.S., you don't need a cable company at all. HBO Now.
It's HBO in the Netherlands, but there's no HBO Now in the Netherlands. It's not going to happen anytime soon over here. So
that's sad.
Yeah, I think that they if they do go the Netflix route, right? They say, hey, everybody here in Europe, you can now have HBO Now. They would make a ton of money because everybody would cut the cord for their subscriptions, and I think that's one of the things that's holding them back, because there's like companies that would say, oh, okay, if you do that, then we no longer will have you on our cable network.
Well, that's the thing. I think they would make a lot of money. That's the risk, right?
Yeah.
You have to provide these services. HBO has been doing it. A couple of the other companies are starting to offer direct services. But the thing is, like, I like Stars, and I like some original content on Stars, but I don't like it enough to pay that much money a month when I'm only getting maybe 3% interest out of 100%. You know,
we should just kickstart a TV series. Like, really, The Expanse should be kickstarted. People should pay for it, and people who want it, get it. And if people who don't want it, don't get it. Right?
Yeah, well, there's definitely, Vimeo has, pay-only offerings, right? You can build your mini-series and then put it up against a paywall under Vimeo.
Yeah.
And then also YouTube Red, right?
Yeah. Again, only available in the U.S.
Yeah.
Right? That's basically, I think that's my gripe for today. Just everything is only available in the U.S.
Yeah.
Space, only available in the U.S.
Yeah.
That was one of the during the Q&A afterwards of the SpaceX event. One of the people asked, why don't you include other countries? Why don't you include other people from other countries? Well, it's rockets, so it's a weapon technology. Okay, but yeah. Oh well. Anyway.
Well, I mean, I guess what the real question to that is, why haven't other countries made the effort? There's nothing been stopping other countries from building things, right? I mean, I might be wrong. There might be UN laws and such and agreements in place.
The UN is going to start a new space missions.
Yeah, I heard about that recently. Yeah.
So I think that's a good thing.
That's a step forward. However,
EU is doing stuff too.
NASA has a lot of agreements and pairings with other international. The EU has a space organization. Yeah.
Yeah, ESA.
Yeah, which is filled with a lot of Europeans and non-Europeans.
Yep.
Yep.
I think that's the Rosetta thing. That was so sad. They made pictures of spaceships saying goodbye, and it was really sad. Do you see that?
No, I don't think so.
The Rosetta mission with Philae lander and the Rosetta orbiter that went to the comet, and the lander has already been deactivated for some time because it didn't have enough power, and they landed Rosetta on the comet. Oh, landed pretty hard, but they turned it off, and they posted pictures about Philae saying, "Hey, Rosetta, is that you?" It's like really, 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 really sad. They punched everybody in the fields. Okay, so enough about feelings. The Google hardware event, you were talking about that.
Yeah, there's only a couple things of interest inside here. So Chromecast 4K, that's a natural progression forward. I don't think there's any real big news about that. I don't have a 4K TV yet. There's an intermix of 4K capable devices that can output that, but I don't actually have any 4K, Blu-ray player or the Fire TV I have can do 4K, but I don't have a 4K TV. So for me, I won't be buying it until like that day happens. But that's good. I mean, I think that's just the natural progression of the Chromecast. But I definitely love my Chromecast. I will say that. Totally use that. Google Home is kind of the most of interest to me. The Google Pixel phone, I think I'm at a weird place right now between where my contract with my current carrier is going to end. So I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to go buy the Google Pixel XL. I haven't fully committed to the thought, but I think I'm going to do that. It's an unlocked phone. I'm going to sign up with Project Fi, and I'm going to cancel because my contract will basically be over, and I will have paid for my physical device that I'm holding up. I will, I will have owned this, and then basically there's no real risks or costs for me to kind of close down my current, account. So I think we're going to do that. The Google Pixel phone, I guess what I'm looking for is I just want to reduce the chance of bloatware. That's it. I want a cleaner running phone. The Galaxy Note 4, the Samsung device I have today, is not so bad. But I don't want to be in that position where I got to turn off a bunch of junk that I don't want running, that's eating up battery, that's, putting me into a cycle where I have to be inconvenienced. I want a cleaner phone experience, and I think hopefully the Google Pixel phone might be, the best way to handle that. So, but for me, the most interesting note is the Google Home. That's their that's sort of their voice-activated voice assistant device. And, everyone's got a different version of that, like Cortana with Microsoft, Amazon with Alexa, Siri, which I guess has been well integrated, obviously, into the phones. Has that been integrated into Mac OS?
Yeah, in the new version of OS X, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the only kind of problem I have, is that my universe of organizing my life does not live in one place, right? It doesn't live in one person's ecosystem. I don't really have any Apple devices. I have old Apple devices, but I don't have any new Apple devices, and I don't live in an Apple ecosystem. I live in a Google world, and I functionally use Windows OS. So the kind of downfall for me is I wish Cortana could integrate with my Google services naturally, but it doesn't. It integrates with Microsoft services naturally. And then Apple stuff only integrates with Apple services naturally. And Google's now, for the nth time, trying to provide a device that's with their AI bots now.
Their assistant, yeah.
Yeah, and they're going to offer a set of things for that. But then Alexa also serves a little bit of purpose if I want to buy things. So I wish there was a universal mechanism that could sort of just work with all of them. Maybe the Google Assistant would work if I want calendar and email and all of those things, but it doesn't work with my Alexa life, and it doesn't work with my Windows life. So for me, it's promising, right? Because I could say, okay, Google, and then say, how long will it take me to get to work today? And they'll tell me about traffic, and they'll tell me about weather. But the Fire TV or the Alexa or the Echo Dot or whatever, those things won't do that. Right, and Cortana won't do that for me unless I reinvest my life in their ecosystems at the same time, which is not what I'm interested in doing.
But I think that if you can hook them up, if you have something like if this and that or something like that, right?
Sure.
If you could have something that will tie them all together, that would be great. But really, I don't really care about these things because I can't even use them. The only one I can use is Siri. I can't even use Cortana because I'm in the Netherlands. I mean, really.
I'm surprised by that. I didn't know that was a problem at all.
Yeah, well, ongoing problem.
Yeah. Is that generally a non-US problem?
Yeah.
So if you lived in Britain, you couldn't use Cortana?
If I lived in Britain, I could use Cortana.
Okay. Is it just a non-English speaking problem?
No, because the Germans can use Cortana.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's really sad.
So, living in the U.S. and not having any visibility outside the U.S., I would know these things.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be great for you to, if you're running your gaming PC and then you would say set an alarm for, and then it work. You could do that, but then you have to activate all this Microsoft stuff, and I'm not interested in.
No, I turned everything I could do about the searches and stuff. Turn it off. Yeah, it's the first thing I do because I really don't want my stuff to be.
Yeah,
in a data center owned by Microsoft somewhere.
Right, I understand that, and also keep in mind you got to turn this stuff on Google too, because Google's recording all your voice things. But in the same respect, I wish I could use Cortana integrated with my Google stuff, and would say, again, it's more about like setting a calendar event or getting an Uber or, getting the weather and stuff like that. But I don't want a version of my address book in, with Microsoft and a version in my phone and a version somewhere else. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want that. You
Yeah,
know?
but Google Now, that is, that works for me because I say, okay, Google, and it does my thing, right?
And so that's why like Google Home makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But then again, it doesn't. It works for that facet of my life, but then it's in conflict with everything else.
Hmm. Did you see the thing about Google Wi-Fi? They have like a new mesh thing going on.
Yeah. So so like the informing the conversation about that I guess I was talking about with like cutting the cord and my roommate got a new TiVo is I'm having to like kind of disassemble my network to add his TiVo onto the network.
Hmm.
And I'm looking for, there's a couple players into this, right? Google's had some variation. They have a new thing now, the Google Wi-Fi, which I want more. I want more details, right? Because Netgear's got one too. I think the Orb or Orbi or something like that. Linksys, I think, has got a version 2, and then there's a bunch of Kickstarters that have been offering some stuff, and then there is Aereo has they're working on the millimeter internet stuff.
Yeah.
I can't think of the name of what their solution is, but it's also based on things like that too. It definitely looks interesting, but I technically want more detail. I want to know how it works and how it's securing the house network.
I think it's an offshoot of their thing that they did with the OnHub
Right.
a
Yeah.
while back. So, and basically, I could really use like something like this because the internet here in my house is really horrible when I go over Wi-Fi because it's not. If there's anything in the way, then I get interference. If I turn on my wireless headset, everything goes down. Right. It's a 2.4 gigahertz band, mostly on that thing right now.
Yeah. I bought a router that has both bands, and this is pre-AC wireless bands. I don't know, more than 5 years ago, and that's what's in this house. And the coverage is pretty good, all the way up into my bedroom. So this router is wired up in the house in the basement, and 2 floors up, it gets pretty good solid signal. So I don't have a coverage issue inside of 1,000 and 2,000 square feet. I got pretty good coverage from one device, which has been pretty good. But what I want is a better, more modern solution that allows me to add devices and selectively say which devices can be added and cannot be added. I don't have a problem with giving out the password, but what happens? People just give your password out every which way, and then you have your friends who are
or have
just
Microsoft
leech
do
off
it.
your internet. Yeah.
Yeah, the thing with Microsoft with sharing the Wi-Fi to people in your contact list. I'm like,
oh yeah, I turned
what?
that off.
What? But it might already be there, right? That's why I have I change my password a lot, and then I have a guest network, so nobody can leech off it. Anyway, so I have some other things on the list here. I have something I've been working on. I'm working on a WebGL based thing, make a little voxel game type thing with 3.js. That's something I'm working on. I might make a topic about that on the website and put some thoughts together and maybe show off some stuff. So that I'm going to do that at one point. And I found out that the Oh No printer is it's heading towards me at around mid to late October. And you can find more about that on polymatic.link/2. I think we shall see if that's going to happen. And you had something about the Gole too? You had a Gole in last week, and now you have a Gole too? What?
Yeah, so I got the Gole, maybe about a month ago, I think so. And, so I've been updating them. I never go on the Android side. It's mostly the Windows side. And really all I've been doing with it is occasionally it's connected to the main TV in the house, and I watch web-based shows off of that because there's a lot of cable service provider stuff where they don't have an app and they won't contribute to Netflix or Hulu, but you can watch it on demand with your cable provider through a website. So I've been using them like that, and then we've been playing with them with Artemis, and so they've been useful for that. So I don't turn them on heavily and actively. But yes, they finally, sent it to me about, I don't know, within last 2 months, and so I have it. And now they're relaunching. They're doing the Gole 2. And I get that because I was on the Gole 1 campaign, and so I'm probably in the first wave of people to get the Gole 2 has been announced campaign. And to be honest, this is the Gole 1, I think, is a better device, right? If you guys want to follow along with this conversation, just check out polymatic.link/5. So what's new about it? Nothing. They put a 5 megapixel full HD camera onto the device. It's a physical case. I believe it looks like they removed the battery. They removed the touch screen. They give you one less USB port. They do give you an internal way of, I guess, adding a 2.5 millimeter drive pretty easily. It looks like you just kind of open up something and you plug your drive in and you're good to go, up to a terabyte. But otherwise, I don't think it's much of a new difference. It costs a little more right now. It's as of today, it's $114 to get the 64 gig. The Intel 4 gig, 32 megabytes of storage device.
Gigabytes, I hope.
Well, yes, gigabytes, yes.
Yeah, but it does look different, right? So it is. It's different shape. It has a camera. So there is something completely different that they're doing with this, which is interesting. I'm not going to buy it, but if somebody does.
Yeah, I don't think it's an improvement. They also, if it's worth knowing for those who don't want to run Windows on it, they are also offering a Phoenix OS version, which is less RAM. Less. It's 2 gigabytes with 32 gigs of storage on it. It's a little less. And it's obviously an ARM-based chip. Right, and it's running Phoenix OS. But for me, this is like not an improvement. Like you would think, here's the advantage, right? And I don't know if you've ever been in a place, but I definitely have worked in places where there's a storm coming, and all of a sudden the power goes out. But we're all on laptops, so we didn't lose our work, right? And so having a battery built in is actually kind of useful. It also offers the portability. This is not a portability device. This is designed to sit powered into a plug in your wall on a desktop. So, I mean, this is definitely a different device. But the things that make the Gole 1 kind of unique for me, they've completely removed from this device. So, for me, I have zero interest in wanting to buy this.
Okay.
So,
well, something more interesting that I found. I was watching the Linux Tech Tips YouTube channel, and I saw a video about a nerd hangout, which is very, very cool, and something I think we really need here. It's a
you're talking about mocks.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
So there's like rooms where they're hidden behind bookshelves and stuff like that. It's really, really something to behold. You can find more about that on polymatic.link/1, and it's mostly board games, role-playing games, stuff like that. It's really, really nice. It's
I think it's Mock's Boarding House. That's what it was, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Totally would be awesome for like the Artemis group to like for us to go, and that's nowhere near me. I think that's in Washington or something, Washington State.
Yeah.
But I mean, if there was one out this way, then yes, I think we could totally take over a room and set up and play our Artemis game, and the nature of like other people who are into games will go, hey, what's going on in here? And then might take interest and might join your group, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, a colleague of mine, former colleague of mine, he's planning to make a game cafe, kind of like that, like more not like video games, but like actual board games, and I think he's into the Star Wars thing too. So it's like the Star Wars board game thing. But he's working on it, trying to find people to fund it. I might have a chat with him, see if he's interested in talking about that at some point.
I know there's definitely a couple of them in Philly. There's at least one of them in Philly. I've never been. That is sort of really, there's a lot of PCs you can rent time there. I assume there's like limited food and stuff, but no, this Mock's Boarding House is like, I can't explain it. You just watch the video. This place is awesome. And I wish they were like, in the U.S. we have Dave & Buster's, right? There's video games, there's pool, there's bars, there's food, right? And if Mock's Boarding House had like, a franchise like that, this would be great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. They're uniquely in one place. It looks like right now. So, which is nowhere near me.
So you had something else, right?
Yeah, so I ran into something on YouTube. I'm always watching stuff on YouTube. That's kind of replacing a lot of my TV. Maybe that's part of my cord cutting mentality. So you should check out this video. This is not the guy who created it. I have not downloaded the map yet, but there's a Minecraft map that is basically 7 towns or 7 cities this person's been working on for 6 years. Over to Polymatic.link/3, and pretty impressive. I've spent hours in the Minecraft, and I have never built anything ambitious like that. Why? Because the only person who can enter my worlds are me. John's never seen any of my home worlds or anything that I built. So there's nothing really to share unless I put it up on a server or something. It's impressive, I have to say. The guy built a subway system on minecarts and powered rails, which is actually kind of neat.
It's pretty amazing, yeah.
Yeah. And it says something about, and what was it? The person in the video, I think, said he only built this in 10% of the world. So. Well,
the Minecraft worlds are like huge.
Yeah. I don't have a mega world.
I wonder if he did this in creative or if he did this in
I would suspect he had to do this in creative.
In survival would be really amazing, but I don't think so.
No, I mean, I'm what I've been doing lately is I found I touched it the first time in like 3 weeks. This week, I created a new world and I got myself super lost, and I found a bunch of mesas and just like huge mountains of hardened clay, which is my indicator there's gold everywhere. And so I found a lot of gold, but the problem is it is way far away from my home world, my home base. And so what I started doing is I started the first of very many where I'm going to build these like towers and sort of skywalk connect them, and then I will get them farther way down to that very corner of my world so that I can, at least if I ever get myself lost, I just have to find one of my many towers along my way, and that I could navigate my way back home. Because this is what I did in my first world that I created. I created a ton of these little like towers, and so I could see them from a distance, that I could get into one and I could get up and I could get home safely.
You should try to do something with nether portals. You can connect them with each other, and then you can make some like a nether portal hub, and you can switch between the just walk from one into the other. But instead of having to travel very long distance, you can just hop through there.
So I haven't really figured out the magic for that. In the first world I created a portal, and it put me one place, which is basically locked in. It's like in a cave that's sealed. So every time I explored, I got hit by lava or something and killed myself. So, I don't know what I need to do yet. But for that, because it's self-contained, I built myself basically a hut and basically put doors every which way. And so I use it exactly as you're saying, is I build these portals in the far-off outposts, and I usually build a portal, and then I go through it, and then I come out of it, very quickly back home. Like always, right? It always takes me back home. Doesn't go anywhere else.
If it is within 1,000 blocks, so 1,000 meters, basically a kilometer, then it's going to hop to the same nether portal, right?
Right.
But if you want to do something that goes between 2 different places, like longer distance, you can calculate where it is by looking at the coordinates, and every meter in the nether is 8 meters in the real world. So you can calculate where you're going to be, and then it will plop it somewhere.
Yeah, so I haven't set up in the second world. I haven't set that up. Because as to your point, you gave me advice, which I didn't know, is I made myself, because I had a lot of obsidian on me, and I made myself an obsidian hut. And clearly it's going to be, I haven't gone back to see if it's been damaged yet. So I got to change that over to cobblestone. I didn't know.
Okay. I've been playing with Arduino this week. I built a hamster fitness device where I can plug it onto a hamster wheel and calculate the amount of distance it's traveled during the day. Basically a hamster Fitbit. And I got most of the parts in today, this week. and I'm gonna try to build something and put something on Polymatic, maybe with some photos and maybe a video. That's gonna be at least somewhere soon. Polymatic.
How's the coding for that? How's the languages for that?
That's basically C for Arduino, and you just write your thing and then hope it works and upload it to the device.
I was interested in some of the Raspberry Pi and people putting like Windows 10 and even Windows. Microsoft's got some sort of like headless version where you can install Windows I forget what they call it. It's not Windows embedded, but it was something like that where it was basically a web-based interface.
Yeah, that's the Internet
you could
of
program
Things
for
thing,
it.
right? The Internet of Things Windows. But this is an Arduino. This is basically something very, very simple compared to a Raspberry Pi. So a Raspberry Pi is like completely Linux, completely OS on it, and with an Arduino, you're writing the OS.
Right. Yeah. So in this case, the reason I was considering it is I thought about looking at that, but the language I know best and very comfortable with and have a lot of code for it already is like .NET. So and the tools that I have are pretty good. So for me, that's where my comfort zone is. It's also where I have a lot of experience and challenges. So that's why I asked the question, because I thought, well, maybe one day I'll buy one of those devices and do some, little project things. But I'm not likely doing it anytime soon.
But you're not going to be able to install any .NET stuff on an Arduino. The Arduino is just very
but
simple.
But if I get a Windows
hardware.
embedded device or something, right,
Yeah.
or one of the put on a Raspberry Pi or the 2 microcomputers I have, I can do lots of stuff.
Well, the thing is with those devices like a Raspberry Pi and stuff, you can't really do the very precise protocols and stuff, right? So you need to have some driver that does that for you, but you can't really control those Adafruit NeoPixels with a Raspberry Pi because its resolution on its output ports is not good enough, right? So that's I think you should really look into Arduino. It's a lot of fun, and you can get a board for like a tiny amount of money, and you can make like something that controls your LED lights in your basement dwelling.
Yeah, I think the only kind of nerdy project I would put some effort in is figuring out how to get Artemis when we turn red alert on and have it change the Philips Hue lights in the house to red.
You can easily do that with this and that, and maybe some Raspberry Pi stuff. Yeah. Anyway, so I think that's it for today. So Alan, where can they find you?
On Twitter. Pretty easy way to get a hold of me. My last name, Chase, Chaess.
And you can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/webdevy, WEBDEVVIE. And you can reach us for feedback at podcast@Polymatic.media. You can find our Twitter at twitter.com/thepolymatic. Our website is Polymatic.media, and I hope you tune in next time. Music in this episode was by Say Uns. It was licensed under Creative Commons Attribution and found on the Free Music Archive. You can find these tracks at shortner.com/PRK.